Greetings, welcome back to the channel. The cycle proves the narcissist's spiritual darkness. I'm going to unpack this today. Um, I'm consistent in saying from day one, and I'm going to always do this, that narcissism is a spiritual disorder. These people are spiritually corrupt. It's the only way you can explain the things that they do. And one of those major proofs to me is the cycle. Some of you guys already know what I'm talking about. If you don't, stay tuned. Can you imagine knowing to a certainty how something is going to unfold and how it's going to happen? You know the outcome. You already saw the end of the book. You've already read the epilogue. You know it, okay? Imagine for a certainty knowing how something is going to end and that it's going to end very, very poorly for you or mainly for the person that you're with, but doing it over and over and over and over again. Well, that is exactly what the narcissist does. And it takes a spiritually disordered and disturbed individual to do something of that nature. So, what is this cycle? Well, we know the cycle. We should. All of these people play from this playbook, which is part of why you know it's a spiritual disorder, because they're all in alignment. Somehow, some way, you can be a male or a female. You can be, no matter the ethnicity, no matter the location, no matter what any factors are involved, and you do the exact same things. Like you're programmed. So, what these narcissists will do is pretty much always the same thing, but they have different ways that they carry it out. So, they will start by sizing you up and getting an idea of who you are, and then they are going to pick the thing that you want the most, the thing that you want them to be. You need a father or you need a mother for your children. You are, let's just say, a very easily turned on person and you like a certain type of attention. They'll give you that. You're at a low point in your life and you need someone to pick you up and be your hero. They'll be that. It doesn't matter what it is. They'll size you up and they'll get an idea. And then that's what they're going to hit you with. And that's what we call love bombing. It's not always sexual. It is if that's what works for you. Because I've seen it both ways. They try to do that. If it's not working, they may try to do something else. So it doesn't have to be that way. But they're going to lay it on thick. And they're going to make you feel like you are on top of the world and you're the best thing and you're everything they always needed. They'll often put you in the hero role. They're a victim, and they just need a hero. They need someone to save them. They just want a good man. I just can't find a good man. And they pretend that you are that to them. You probably are, probably were. But they don't need that. They don't even want that. They just want to make you think that they do. So they're going to lay it on thick. And about the time if you don't know about this stuff, if you don't know anything about it, about the time you start to really cozy up to that person and start trusting them and you're involved and whatever it is, they know that you're entangled. That's when the real person shows up for the first time. But see, they don't come out all at once, and they don't come out with confetti and balloons, and they don't stand up on a pedestal with a megaphone. No, no, no. They show you a flash of who they really are, and then that's when the real fun begins, because you're like, what did I just see? Wait a minute, wait a minute. I've been talking to this person for 3 or 4 months, and I never saw anything like that out of them. And well, I really, really care about this person now, but what was that? That was them. And that's the beginning of the devaluation stage, step 2. So they love bombed you, and then you got hooked in whatever capacity, and then the real person showed up for the first time to start the devaluation stage. And that's when you get in this tug of war, back and forth, wishy-washy pattern. We're like a hawk that scoops up a squirrel on the street. takes it real high up and drops it down, right? And if it doesn't work, they do it again and again. And they pick you up and drop you, pick you up and drop you. You're just like this over and over. And every time that that happens, you get a little more confused, a little more sucked into it, a little more under the narcissistic spell or the trauma bond. You didn't even know what it was, but that trauma bond, that spell starts to form because of that wishy washy pattern. There's the good person, there's the bad person. There's the good person, there's the bad person. They shower you with attention and praise and breadcrumbing and future faking, and then they devalue you and criticize and cut and ghost and silent treatment. And the whole time you're like getting more and more frazzled. You guys know what I'm talking about if you've been through it. Because you get into this stage, this stupor, throughout the course of this process where you don't know where you're at. You don't know where you are. You cannot make heads or tails of anything. You can't go into the grocery store and pick out a tube of toothpaste because you don't even know which one to get. And frankly, you don't even remember why you're there anymore. You can't go in and pick out a box of screws from the hardware store to do a simple repair that would have taken you 5 seconds in your right mind. Now you can even pick out the stuff because you're constantly thinking about this person. And they're on your mind all the time. You know what I'm talking about. And that's what happens in this devaluation stage. And they get you in that wishy-washy pattern, and they all do this. They all do this in different ways. And then, after long enough has transpired, one of two things happens. Because, yes, some people stay married to narcissists for a long time, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But what happens typically is one of two things. You get to a place where you just cannot stand it anymore. This guy. You just can't do this anymore. It is the most, you don't even know what's going on, but it's the most vitriolic, toxic thing imaginable on earth. And you just can't take it. And something's got to give. And you finally end it. Not for one of the 10 different times that you got back together, the many discards. No, this is the real one. And you discard them because you just can't do it anymore. Or, oftentimes, they have been grooming other people behind your back, which they're all doing. And they have finally said, you know what? This person's down. They're starting to figure me out, maybe, or they're starting to put up boundaries, or I've sucked the life out of them enough. I'm ready to go on. Jane or Tarzan swinging through the jungle, right onto the next branch. They're ready to go. And they drop you like you never existed because in some ways you never did. They never cared. Not very much. And it depends on what part of the spectrum you're on. Some narcissists, if they're not that far down the road, they do care about people to an extent. But once they start to get way down that road, that drops farther and farther off the cliff. So, whatever happens, one of two things, you discard them or they discard you. And that's the cycle. They love bombed you, they devalued you, and put you in that wishy-washy pattern that formed a trauma bond and the narcissistic spell. Then they discarded you or you discarded them. And sometimes then it's not over. Because if you're not strong and you don't understand what it is and you're still susceptible, they will oftentimes come back, and we call that what? A hoover. I'm not going to go into hoovering. I don't think it happens as much as it used to because there's too much supply out there, but it does still happen. And I've seen that. I've seen that. Generally speaking, the hoover's going to come. I'd say usually. Not as much as it used to, but usually. And they come back and they're going to try to sweep you up again, just check on you, get something going, seeing if they can start this round of abuse again. And that's all it is. They're not coming back because they loved you or cared about you that much. No. They're just coming back because maybe things aren't going that well for them, or they just want to see if they can get back into your life. Let's do this again, man. That is the cycle. Now, some people will say, well, this person's married. They've been married for like 10 years, 15 years. The narcissist has been married for so long. They're not doing this cycle. That's where you're wrong. They are. They're just doing it behind their partner's back. their husband or wives back. And this is where also people say, well, not all narcissists cheat. Well, you know what? Any of them who can and can get away with it, they'll cheat. And a lot of people don't consider the fact that it doesn't have to be a physical relationship. It often is. It doesn't have to be. If you're in a relationship with somebody at all, and you are flirting or talking to people of the opposite sex in an inappropriate way, that's cheating. That's cheating. Well, not all narcissists cheat. Well, yeah, they do. If they have the occasion and the ability to do so, they're going to do it, even if that just means they're talking behind your back to other people. Because remember, they always have to have backups set in place. And the only way you have a backup set in place is if you're communicating with other people all the time. It's the only way you can do it. They're not going to be left alone for a second, not a hot second. So they got somebody or some people sitting back there that they've been communicating with. This is highly narcissistic, and this is actually extremely common in our culture. I mean, guys and ladies, go look at the statistics about how frequently people have backups. I'm not going to even mention the gender because it is one particular gender that does it astronomically more than another one. Just go look it up. And this is fact. I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody. It's just the truth. Because that's a highly narcissistic thing, and narcissism has overtaken our society. Even if you're not a down the road, full-fledged narcissist, oftentimes you're still doing these types of things at times because it's so rampant. So the only way that they're not cheating is usually if they can't cheat. They don't have a means to do it. And there's different ways they can be in situations where they can't really get away with doing it. Or some of them may not even be able to really get much of anything else. It does happen. But I got to tell you, I know a particular narcissist. He's a male, grandiose as it can get. I mean, you know full well when you meet him, he thinks he is the you know what. I mean, absolutely full of himself to no end, okay? He has been married multiple times because they usually are. If they're the marrying type, some of them aren't. Some of them won't get married. No matter what, they won't get married because that blocks them off from getting other supply or being able to just move on. He's been married multiple times. The last one, he's currently still in, I think it's like 15, 18 years. You think, well, how's that possible? Because he's got a life behind his wife's back that, well, frankly, she does know about now. But for reasons I don't understand, I'm not that close to it, she's still there. Trauma bonded and other things probably, or maybe she's got her own life too. But he does. It's a known fact. And guess what? So this cycle I talked about, it may not be happening with her, although it kind of probably is on a big, long scale. Because I'm sure they've had breakups and got back and breakups. But it's the people he grooms and has relationships on the side that go through this. Love bomb, devow, discard, hoover. So even if they're married, they're still doing this in a big scale to their husband or wife in a long roundabout way. But all those little ones they do with the people that they're screwing around with on the side. So here's my point. The main point of this video is that's the cycle. Imagine being so messed up, so spiritually disturbed that you know going into every situation with every person that it's going to go exactly this way. We're going to meet. I'm going to love bomb them. I'm going to devalue them. One of us is going to discard the other. I'll probably try to come back at some point. And over and over and over it goes. Imagine knowing that that is the way it is. And how do they know that? Because they've done it over and over. It's repeated. They've been doing that. Most of the narcissists have been doing that since they were teenagers. Trust me. Because that's really when that whole thing starts to solidify. And narcissists, in my opinion, pretty much solidify themselves as narcissists in the teenage years, high school area. That's when that really picks up. And that's when they really cement that for themselves. By their terrible decisions and manipulative behavior, they give themselves over to the powers of darkness until they become narcissists. And then after that, usually they become reprobates at some point in time. Not always, usually. So imagine knowing, because I've done this my whole life. Not me, I'm talking about a narcissist. I've blown relationships up my whole life every time, and it always goes the same way. I start out all hot. I'm really into this person. They're different. It's going to be different this time. And then the same thing happens. You think they don't know that the same thing happens? Yes, they do slip into delusion farther and farther as time goes on. If you tell the same lies enough times, you start to believe them. The narcissist does this, but they know their patterns. As an example, one of the things I got at the end after I discarded the narcissist, where she was still trying to weasel her way back in by sort of buttering me up and taking blame, but it's false blame. It wasn't real. It was just so I could think she was trying to take accountability, but she wasn't. What she would say is, I know my patterns, I know my tendencies, and I know I self-sabotage. I blow up relationships. I can't handle the fact that I did this with us. I don't have my person anymore. And they like to call you their person because it's interchangeable. You're disposable to them. So that's why they like to say, I have my person, my person. Yeah, but they know their tendencies. They admit it. I know my tendencies and my patterns, and that I self-sabotage and I blow up relationships. They know it. So don't pretend they don't know that this happens. How can you be any kind of living, breathing mortal at all and not know your history and that it always goes the same exact way? So basically, the narcissist is like a person that stands in front of the stove and the burner's hot and it's red and it's crackling and they're basically like, sa, sa, sa. Well, maybe, and they just keep doing it. And they somehow think that the next time they touch it, it's not going to be hot and it's not going to burn them. But they do this over and over. Or pound your head against the wall. Oh, that really hurt. Let's see it again. Let's see if it hurts again. Guys, this is the kind of absurdity that the narcissist does. It's not a stupid person that does this. It's a foolish person, and those are not the same thing. The narcissist is a proper fool. You can be a very intelligent person and lack all wisdom. Make terrible, poor life decisions and be, by the books, extremely intelligent. The narcissist, many of them, not all of them, some of them are very intelligent, but they have absolutely no wisdom whatsoever because they don't look into the future. They don't look into how things are going to go. They just act. They just do it. And they have absolutely no wisdom at all. They make the worst life decisions you could possibly make. And they do it over and over continuously. And they do this cycle continuously. Can you imagine? Now, I'm serious. Now, think about how messed up you have to be to understand full well exactly how it's going to go every time. And because you have a track record of this occurring every time. And to think to yourself, actually, I just met this person. I've been in 1,800 relationships. I've been with 68 people, if you know what I mean. But this one's going to be different. I really think he's different. And they idolize you. And they actually convince themselves somehow for the briefest of seconds that it's going to be different when it's never different. And in their deep, dark pit, black heart, they know it's not going to be different because they know it's still them. The most important thing hasn't changed, which is them. The common denominator is still the common denominator. Do you understand the depths of how spiritually disturbed and disordered one must be to know the outcome, to know they're going to do this cycle, then they're going to idolize you, and then they're going to love bomb you, and they're going to then create something out of thin air, some problem out of the mist. Because that's what they do. The devaluation begins by them starting a problem out of thin air that never existed. It never happened. And I've seen this now multiple times, and I know how that works. And if you don't know the game, you will sit and think to yourself, "Oh my God, what did I do? Like, I don't understand what I did. What did I do?" Because I did that the first time, and then I got the knowledge and I wised up, and I won't do it again. But you sit there and you think to yourself, "Well, why are we having all these problems? I didn't like nothing really happened. What?" But you convince yourself because they convince you that you did something horrible, just egregious. And you know in the back of your mind, you're like, I didn't really do anything. Oh, but they're going to convince you because they're master manipulators. They're going to convince you, oh, you did something. This relationship was going great. And now this because you, but that's all by design. That's all part of the pattern. And they do that over and over and over. And it's different for each person, the thing that they dream up that you did. But it's consistent. They always do it. And imagine just understanding the steps of this process. I'm going to idolize them. I'm going to love bomb them. I'm going to create a problem out of thin air. And so we can start this wishy-washy, abusive, toxic pattern where I get them stuck in the trauma bond. And they know this stuff too, guys, because I have been texted before, like things like this. Everyone at work notices your work is falling off, even if you don't work with them, because they know that they put people in a very strange situation where you ruminate on them, over them, and so your work does suffer because they've seen it in the past. Or they're like, they'll talk about how obsessed you are. You're so obsessed. You think about me all the time. Because they know they put people in that spell, whether you do think about them all the time. Guys, they understand this stuff. And they know all of this and how it's going to end, and that they're going to discard you or you're going to discard them, and that they're going to be building relationships the entire time behind your back. I've got backups for my backups. I've been talking to other people the whole time because they always are. And they know that they're going to do this, and then they know at some point it's going to break, and they're going to be with the next person and do the same thing again. And while they're doing that to them, they're building for the next one, and they're building for the next one, and they're building for the next one. And if they're married for 30 years, that just means they've been doing that behind their spouse's back for 30 years. That's all that it means. If you guys think that it means anything different, how do these relationships last? I've had so many people tell me this. But Brian, I mean, they're still together after all these years. Yeah, and there's one reason for that. One reason at the end of the day for that. And you know what it is? It's because the person they're with is accepting and putting up with the most heinous, toxic abuse imaginable. And that's it. The narcissist wants people that are bendable, pliable, that will put up with their nonsense, that'll be a punching bag and a doormat. They want that person so that they can live the life they want to live while having somebody on the hook. And you'll just put up with it. And so if you see somebody, if you know the person you were with was a narcissist, and now they've been with somebody for however long, you know how. You probably weren't willing at some point to put up with the things that they put you through at some point, because they break. Almost everyone has a breaking point at some point. So, but if they're married for 15, 20 years, that's because that person was just resigned themselves to being a doormat. They're just, hey, this is my life. This is just how relationships are, and it's toxic and it's abusive, and that's just how things go, and that's my life. And yeah, there are people who resign themselves to that fate. It's called anyone who's been married to a narcissist for a long time. Sad reality, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So to sum this up, one of the main ways you know without any question that the narcissist is a spiritually disturbed person, that they have spiritual darkness, is because this cycle that they do over and over and over with everyone that they're with, and if they're married, it's behind their back, and they know it's going to go this way, and they do it over and over again anyway. Now, why? Ask yourself, why would anyone do that? If you knew how it was going to turn out, because it always does, and in fact you mean it to, you make it happen, why? Why would you do that? The only way I can rationalize this at all is because that person is so spiritually dark and tormented and has demonic attachment that they, even though they know the outcome, cannot help but do it all over again anyway. They have to. It's like their assignment. They become on autopilot. They're robotic. That is a telltale sign of a demonically attached person who cannot stop doing the exact same things over and over, but somehow has to do it. I got to give it a try. The old burner on the stove. Stop, stop, stop. Ah. That is not a stupid person. In this case, that is a spiritually disturbed person who knows what they're doing and knows it will always be that way, but cannot help but do it anyway. The cycle proves the narcissist's spiritual darkness. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. Drop comments below. I have some new subscribers recently, which is good. I think a lot of I think a lot of YouTubers paid to have subscribers. I figured that out. They're not organic because you have a lot of people who have like 50,000 subs, and you actually look at the number of views and comments, it's not very high. Well, something's off with that. I don't ever care to do that. I love everybody who subscribes and follows this channel, and we have a community here, and we talk, and we have comments, and you guys email me, and I've talked to some of you on the phone. Um, that's the real thing, and so yeah, I just appreciate all of you, and if you haven't subscribed, I hope you consider doing it and just following along with the community, sharing your thoughts, and always, guys, reach out if you need help. My information's in the about section. So anyway, I will come at you with another one soon. Until then, God bless.